When Britain froze solid. The winter from 81 to 82. Hi, hello, and welcome everyone. We are in the midst of winter here in Europe. For several weeks now, we've had so much snow falling from the sky. It's nice to look at, but it's not so nice if you want to drive your car or trying to take a walk outside and you just have to go back to your house because it's a hazard to walk outside. A few days ago, I have also reacted to the big storm in the UK, which was around that time, if I remember correctly, but it was a really big weather phenomenon. And this one was a recommendation after I have watched that video, which is about the winter that Britain froze solid. From the first pictures of this video, I can see that there was a lot of snow and like children were building houses out of snow. I mean, it looks very similar to what we have experienced in Germany in the last weeks. Not in the south so much, but more in the north. And also in America, I've seen pictures and videos from there. I am very curious what happened in 81 and 82, and that's why I'm going to watch this video. The channel, by the way, is called UK Rewind. This video was released 3 weeks ago. Doesn't have a lot of views though, and also almost no comments. So maybe if you like the video, hop on over there and comment under their video instead of mine, or under both channels if you want to. But please hop on over there and support the other channel as well. And now let's just jump into the video.
Picture this. Early December 1981, Britain didn't feel like it was heading for anything special. In fact, it felt like winter might quietly pass everyone by. People were still walking to work in lighter coats, shops were busy with Christmas plans, and nobody was talking about snow in any serious way.
This looks so nice. I love snow and I love winter. I love wearing a cozy jacket and a scarf and a hat, and I just love that feeling. It gives me such cozy vibes. When I see pictures like this, I don't think catastrophe. I think, oh, this is so cool. I love that.
And nobody was talking about snow in any serious way. It was one of those Decembers where you assumed the worst would be a bit of frost on the car windscreen and maybe a slushy pavement or two.
So how bad did it get?
Almost without warning, everything changed. On the night of December the 13th, temperatures fell faster than anyone was prepared for. In parts of Shropshire, thermometers dropped to levels not seen in living memory. The cold wasn't theatrical. There were no sirens, no announcements, no dramatic build-up. You went to bed in a house that felt cold but manageable, and you woke up in a country that felt completely different. People opened their curtains that morning and realized the air itself looked sharper. Cars wouldn't start. Breath hung in the air inside kitchens. Windows didn't just mist over, they froze. For many, this was the moment they realized this winter wasn't going to behave like the others. Number 2.
That's a different
when
level.
The cold came from the north. What made this winter so memorable wasn't just how cold it got, but how suddenly it arrived. In the first week of December, parts of Britain had recorded unusually mild temperatures. Aberdeen saw readings closer to spring than winter.
Look at that.
People talked about how lucky they were. Some even joked that winter had missed Britain altogether that year. Then the wind shifted. Arctic air pushed down from Scandinavia, and within hours the country was in the grip of something far more serious. Snow began falling across southern England almost overnight. Wiltshire, Berkshire, London, places that rarely saw heavy snow suddenly found themselves buried. The morning commute turned into chaos. Roads became ice rinks. Buses stalled halfway up hills and were simply abandoned. Cars were left in ditches where drivers had given up and walked home. Thousands of people set off for work that morning, thinking it would be a normal day, only to find themselves stranded for hours. Some journeys that should have taken 30 minutes lasted 7 hours or more.
Stranded in the freezing cold. I can't think of anything worse. Like, I can't, but that's really bad. Also, I gotta put on my hoodie again because like watching all that snow and him talking about how freezing it got. made me freeze as well. And now I need something really warm to cuddle into. And I love that Uri for doing this. This is so warm. I love it. And imagine just trying to drive to your job and then being stranded in the middle of a street somewhere. You don't have a cell phone. Like, people back then didn't have a cell phone. Like, how are you supposed to tell anyone where you are or that you need help out there? You were just stranded. I mean, nowadays you would just call somebody in order to send help or in order to get your car out of the ditch. But back then, you were just stranded and you had no way of telling anyone about it other than the people who were driving the same way that you were.
Nobody had been warned properly. There were no smartphone alerts, no constant weather updates, no endless scrolling through forecasts. You
Again,
found
this
out how
reminds
bad
me
it
of the
was
day
by looking
the
out the
big
window
storm
or by
happened,
failing to
where
get
there was no
anywhere.
warning.
Number 3. When London ground to a halt. London doesn't stop easily, but in December 1981, even London had no choice. Snow fell heavily across the capital, piling up in suburbs
Why
and
don't you
freezing
wear a
solid
jacket?
overnight.
It's like, who's freezing? Doesn't
25
wear a
to
jacket
30
at all.
centimeters of snow lay untouched in places where gritters couldn't reach. Parliament struggled to function.
Have you seen that car? You don't even see the cars anymore. They're just buried by snow. No chance you can get to work or anywhere else. Oh my gosh.
Parliament struggled to function. Commuters simply gave up. There's a story many people still remember from that week.
Wow.
The Queen herself was stranded for hours in a
was
pub
so
in the
young back then.
Cotswolds after roads became impassable. Postmen struggled to make their rounds.
Oh, the
Milk
poor
floats couldn't
postman.
move. Shops opened late or not at all. London, usually so relentless, felt quiet and hesitant. And this was only the beginning. Number 4. The cold that came inside. What people remember most vividly isn't always the snow outside. It's what the cold did inside their homes. Ice formed on the inside of windows.
Wow.
Not delicate frost patterns you could admire and wipe away, but thick, stubborn ice
Oh
that
my
needed
gosh.
scraping with a knife. Getting dressed in the morning meant moving quickly. Clothes left in drawers felt stiff and frozen. Many families laid
That's
the next
bad.
day's clothes at the foot of the bed so they wouldn't turn icy overnight. Central heating was still a luxury in many British homes at the time. Instead, there was usually one coal fire downstairs, one room with warmth.
Oh
The
my
rest of the house
gosh.
simply had to be endured. Families
I
huddled
didn't even think of that. So there was one. I would have just cuddled up in that room, the whole family together. But then again, it's really bad for your health and for breathing if you breathe this dirty air 24/7. But then again, what else are you supposed to do? Or at least leave the clothings in that room so when you get up the next day, you have warm clothes to put on. But then again, you don't have endless resources of coal probably for a few days under normal circumstances. But when something like that happens, and let's say you wanted to go to the store or wherever you bought coal back then, the next day, because you had like 2 pieces left, and then all of a sudden that happens and you're like, oh shoot, I can't go and get new ones, but I don't have anything left. And also the houses back then weren't built the same way the houses are built nowadays, so that they can withstand temperatures that are below zero. For example, the glass. Nowadays we do have glass, not only one glass, but 2 or 3 in one window. And we didn't have that back then. It's better isolated nowadays.
together in living rooms, wearing every jumper they owned. Blankets wrapped tightly around shoulders.
That's what I was
hands
talking
held out
about.
toward the fire, knowing full well that unless you sat right beside it, the warmth barely reached you. At night, people slept under layers, sometimes 4 or 5 blankets, diving under them like shelter. Some slept in their coats, not because they were poor, but because it was the only way to stay warm enough through the night. This wasn't dramatic hardship, it was quiet endurance, and that's why people remember it so clearly. Number 5. Christmas under snow. By the time Christmas arrived, the snow hadn't melted. It had stayed,
Wow.
and it had built up. In parts of the country, snow lay more than 30 centimeters deep. Roads vanished beneath drifts. Villages were cut off entirely. No post, no deliveries, no easy way in or out. Mothers began stockpiling early. Tinned food, extra bread, bottles of milk lined up on windowsills because the fridge couldn't hold them all. Running out wasn't an option because there was no guarantee the shops would open tomorrow. Queues formed outside bakeries before sunrise. People waited an hour or more just for a loaf of bread. Shelves emptied quickly, sugar disappeared. Butter was rationed by shopkeepers who knew their regular customers. If you forgot something, you did without. Or you knocked on a neighbor's door and hoped they had spare. For families cut off by snow, condensed milk in tea became normal. Fresh food was a memory. Making do wasn't a phrase, it was a daily routine. Number 6. When the power went out.
What?
Power cuts became part of daily life.
Ooh, that's
More
bad.
than 250,000 homes lost electricity during December alone.
Yeah.
Snow and ice brought down overhead lines. Short circuits became common. When the power went, everything stopped. No heating, no lights,
That's
just
so bad.
candles, coal fires, and patience. Families sat together in the dark, playing cards, telling stories, listening to the wind outside,
And freezing.
waiting for the electricity to flicker back on. Sometimes it took hours. Sometimes it didn't come back until the next day. There was no panic, no outrage. It was simply accepted as part of the winter. People
Really?
adapted. They always did.
Are there any of you out there who lived through that? Can you please tell me if this is true? I can't imagine that there was no panic on the streets. I just can't. If there is no heat, no electricity, windows are freezing, the clothings you leave in your wardrobe the next day start to freeze as well. It must have been that cold, and then, like, I can't imagine there was no panic anywhere. Please, if you've lived through this time, let me know.
Number 7. When school closed and childhood took over. For children, this winter felt very different.
Yeah, I guess
Schools
so.
didn't close for a day or two. They closed for weeks. In some areas, it felt like Christmas had arrived early and refused to leave. Freedom replaced lessons. Streets became playgrounds. Sledges appeared from sheds and
that's
garages.
a positive part
Tea
about
trays were
that.
stolen from kitchens. Baking sheets borrowed without asking. Anything that could slide became transport. Every street had its own sledging hill, fiercely protected. The best runs were claimed early. Children spent entire days racing downhill. Gloves froze solid. Clothes stayed wet. Nobody cared. To a child, this was the winter of a lifetime.
I can imagine, to be honest, and maybe that's part of why there was no panic at all, because during the day, people were going outside, socializing, talking to other people, and doing fun stuff that they could only do when it snowed. Nowadays, I think people in general and also children would have a way bigger problem with that kind of thing, due to the fact that we can't live a day without social media, without cell phones, without computers. If something like that happened, almost every single child would sit in front of their cell phone all day long in their room by themselves, not playing cards with their parents or going outside and playing with other kids. They would sit in front of their cell phone, and whenever electricity would be there, they charge their phone so that they can be online for hours, even if the electricity is gone. People would be more isolated nowadays, and I guess more angry and panicky about the whole thing. Even though nowadays we do have the better houses and the better heating systems and all of that, we would be more miserable, 100%.
Number 8. When the fun stopped. But behind the excitement, life was hard.
Yeah, I can
Elderly
imagine.
people struggled the most. Hypothermia cases filled hospitals. Doctors trudged through waist-deep snow to make house calls, their bags frozen solid, trying to reach patients who couldn't reach them. Farmers watched helplessly as livestock froze in fields.
Yeah.
Sheep were buried under drifts. Cattle couldn't move. Thousands of animals were lost by the time January arrived. This winter wasn't an apocalypse. Britain had known harsh winters before, but it was relentless, and for many, it pushed daily life right to the edge of what was manageable. Number 9. January 1982
It made it worse?
When December ended, people hoped the worst was over. A brief, mild spell on New Year's Day brought rain instead of snow. Things began to melt. Relief spread quietly.
And then came the
People
ice.
allowed themselves to believe the winter was loosening its grip. Then, on January the 3rd, the cold returned. Heavier, meaner. Snow began falling across Wales on January the 7th and didn't stop for 36 hours. Gale force winds turned powdery snow into towering drifts, some reaching 6 meters high.
Oh my God.
Cars disappeared completely. Houses looked like igloos. Entire towns were cut off. The army arrived with shovels, clearing roads meter by
The
meter.
army had to help.
Helicopters lifted people out who needed medical care. Radio stations became lifelines, broadcasting appeals for help. Anyone with a four-wheel drive was asked to assist. Strangers became heroes overnight, and on January the 10th, temperatures dropped again, some of the lowest ever recorded in Britain. Breathing outside felt sharp, like glass. Exposed skin went numb in seconds. Still, people carried on. The postman still delivered. The milkman still tried, because that's
Wow.
what you did. Number 10. How Britain actually got through it. What people rarely mention when they talk about the winter of 1981 to 82 isn't the cold, it's the people. When streets were buried, neighbors came out to
People
help.
come together.
Cars were dug out together. Elderly residents were checked on daily. Families shared what little they had. Church halls and community centers
that still be
became
the same
gathering
nowadays?
places. Not just for warmth, but for company. People drank tea with strangers they'd never met before.
In some
played
places,
cards,
maybe.
shared stories. The BBC reported
overall?
calmly, no panic, no drama, just quiet acknowledgement that, yes, it was dreadful, but Britain would manage, and it did. The winter of 1981 to 82 wasn't remembered because it broke records. It's remembered because of how people lived through it. Britain had less back then, fewer comforts, fewer conveniences.
That's what I
But when
was
everything froze,
talking
people
about.
came together.
Yeah.
Families sat by one fire and actually talked. Neighbors looked after each other. Strangers helped without being asked. If this brought back memories, share where you were that winter. Were you snowed in? Did your school close for weeks? Do you remember gloves drying by the fire? Because winters like that didn't just test Britain, they showed what it was made of.
Wow. That was such an interesting video. I love that. And I know there were AI pictures in the video, but that's okay because it did change in between AI pictures in order to just give us a picture of what was happening and also real footage. And I liked that combination. Sometimes the use of AI isn't that bad. Sometimes it enriches a video. If it's mixed up like that, it's really cool. I had never ever heard of that before. I mean, I was born in 82, so I wasn't there like in June of 82. I wasn't there in January. I didn't know any of that. And I can't even imagine how hard it must have been for the people back then. Thinking about all of that. It was so cold. There was snow everywhere. You didn't have a heating system. You didn't have a house that was isolated against the cold. And somehow you just made it through. I mean, seeing the cattle die on the fields, that was really sad. And I wondered, didn't they have barns where they could have put the cattle in? Like, I don't know. Why would they leave the cattle outside? That's weird. But I love that all of this also had a positive side. Families came together within the family and also families with other families, and they tried to help each other and all that. And like I said, I don't think it would be the very same nowadays. We have seen something similar like that in COVID times, but then again, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same. There were some people who were trying to help, but most of the people were just sitting in front of their computer and were just hoping for everything to go by. I don't think it would be the same nowadays. I don't think so. But thank you so much for the recommendation of this video. I really enjoyed it. And also, I'm kind of curious what this video is about. Growing up, a British boy in the 1970s felt like this. Maybe I'm going to watch more videos of this channel because I really like this one and the way it was made. Let's look at the comments real quick. I was in mid Wales at the time, minus 26. Oh my gosh. Minus 26 degrees Celsius. I opened the door and it was a wall of snow. I walked 8 miles in snow to see friends. Oh my gosh. I remember as a kid the blizzards and deep snow. We weren't spoiled brats, then snow or rain. We just carried on as usual. Okay, thank you for that one. I wonder how many people in my audience, because most of them do live in the UK, have lived through this winter. Please tell me in the comments, how was it for you? How did you experience this time? Also, thank you so much for watching this video together with me. I hope you had fun watching it, even though it was not such a fun video as my usual ones, but it was an important one for me to understand what happened that winter, and it did its job very well. So I hope you had fun as well watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a nice day. Bye!